Welcome to week 9 office hours. I'm here with Tiffany Wong, as I was last week, and we wanted to talk about your forums and answer some questions that you raised. One of the things we asked you to do was to consider the ways in which the institutional tensions that became so apparent in Qin and Han might have some relevance to your own countries today. And we had a wonderful set of responses from the US, Australia, the Netherlands, Pakistan, Malaysia, Bulgaria, Sri Lanka, Poland, Argentina, all over the world. I was struck that some of you sort of said, okay, well, how does, for example, centralism versus regionalism play out in our country today? But some of you introduced new tensions that you see as being dominant. But I think it's a good idea to think of politics in terms of those tensions. Now, there were other issues that came up.
People wanted to know, does ChinaX cover as much ground as the undergraduate course?
ChinaX covers more ground than the undergraduate course. So let me explain what happened. In the undergraduate course here at Harvard, where students are full-time students, we were doing 3 modules a week, as well as having 2 hours of class discussion, as well as having papers and exams. And we decided that we could try to push out 2 modules a week or 3 modules a week to you, but that this was actually more demanding. And for people who are working, and most of you are working or you're in school somewhere else, that this was really too much to ask. And that's why it's taking so long. I would not object to moving things along more quickly. But we've also had a chance now to revise the modules, revise the assessments, and we'll be doing more revision when we go to the next version of ChinaX next year. But we won't talk about that yet. But we have lots of plans for next year.
And the mini survey.
And how did that turn out? People said yes, no, longer, shorter?
Actually, a lot of people said that it was the right amount, just right.
Okay.
And then a couple people thought that it could be longer. So
Okay.
thank you for taking the mini survey.
And then there was a question which you've alerted me to, is that we had what people regarded as an ambiguous statement. Ending commercialization and taxing in kind. Did it mean they ended commercialization and ended taxing in kind, or was it ending commercialization on one hand, taxing in kind on the other? This refers to the Emperor Wu's policies. Ending commercialization makes possible taxing in kind. Taxing in kind says we don't have to have a money economy. We can simply pay our taxes by paying some of the fruits of our labor, the grain, the cloth, or whatever. And commercialization says, no, we have a money economy. So if you want to have taxing in kind, you don't really want to have so much commercialization. So it's really they're ending commercialization and replacing it with taxation in kind. That was the idea. Okay? Now, we had a discussion forum for this week that had to do with the salt and iron debates. And remember, the salt and iron debates were this sort of paradigmatic division that runs through much of Chinese history between 2 different views of the relationship between the state and the economy. The Lord Grand Secretary likes a big state, right?
Yes.
She's the Lord Grand Secretary. I'm going to be the Confucian literati, and I want a sort of an agrarian, self-sufficient economy. I want government out of things. I also don't want really to be a strong military power. So I think it doesn't really fit exactly what we would call the Republican Democratic camps in the United States. But so we had a number of
Great responses.
really good responses. MDM Heath makes the point, and I think quite rightly, that this is a debate about what's the right role of the state, what's the fair distribution of wealth, that this is an enduring issue. And that's exactly why we asked you to read it in the Han Dynasty. It's an enduring issue in Chinese history, but also fundamentally, it's a question that all of us in complex societies have to deal with.
Yes. And 2 of our readers definitely make this point.
Yeah. But you know, what's really struck me this time, Tiffany, is that we had a whole series of exchanges between 2 people talking back and forth to each other at great length.
Yes.
And you can see those in the forum,
Yes.
right? So maybe we can just talk through one of them, one of the shorter ones between Rosin Knight and Veritas 98.
Yes.
Does Veritas 98 mean you graduated from Harvard in 1998? In any case,
Rosa Knight takes the position of the Lord Grand Secretary, and the Lord Grand Secretary, according to Rosa Knight, his position is that the Great Han Empire must rule with both laws and benevolence, and the revenues that will be taken by the state will be able to be used to invest in to build roads and repair dams and supply garrisons and help the people, and that it's important to encourage merchants to trade with the barbarian states, not only because they will gain significant profit, but also because it will weaken the barbarian states at the same time. And Rosa Knight also makes an important distinction that a small country can be ruled by example and benevolence, but an empire must be ruled by laws.
I'm not sure I've ever seen a small country ruled only by benevolence, but it's a good idea. And the point is well taken that the larger the country, the more you have to depend upon institutions and laws and control over violence and military force. Veritas 98 speaks for the literati and says, basically, Lord Grand Secretary, you were the one, or your government was the one that got us involved in all these foreign adventures and escapades, and now we're being asked to pay for it. Right? So fundamentally, you've created, your desire for foreign conquest has forced you to create a system in which profit and money and gaining resources for the state becomes all important. And that's distorted things, because now what we have are really, who runs the show? Officials and merchants. They are the ones who can deliver wealth to the state.
Yes. And Rosa Knight responds as the Lord Grand Secretary with the fact that Wu Di is the one that established Confucianism as an ideology for the empire, and you literati are all for Confucianism. And without a strong state, it's hard to have
And Confucianism, that if us literati, right, like Confucianism, then you're saying our strong state brings stability and good order, which make Confucianism possible. Well, speaking again for the literati, I'd have to say that Emperor Wu could have been a great conciliator. He could have built a wonderful state with a more activist state within the borders. But now what you've done is you've gone out with your military campaigns, right? And that's the source of all the problem. And you led us to a situation where the people are suffering. And remember, if the people suffer, they can revolt. Well, there's another exchange just between Lucy Costa and Keth. This is probably the most extensive exchange we've ever seen on any of the forums here at HarvardX. Also, we think that it's actually a very, very insightful discussion. A number of you noticed this as well, and you complimented them and appreciated their work. We had actually fewer people participating in the forum this time than usual. Seems to have been a bit demanding for people, but we want you to participate. And go and read Lucy Costa and Keth. Go look at Rosa Knight and Veritas 98 and the other people who are really exchanging ideas and trying to figure this out. It's really great, and we really appreciate it. I did have one last comment I wanted to bring up, and this is from Alexander Martin, who doesn't take a position so much on, doesn't play the roles, but actually takes the note that this is really, in his view, a split between moral idealists, literati, and pragmatic realists, the people at court. And I guess in the end he finds the literati somewhat unrealistic. Right? I think there's something to that literati seem to have an ideal of the self-sufficient agrarian society, and they don't want to allow the kinds of economic and social change that are taking place, which were taking place. Well, thank you all very much for participating. This week, what do we have coming up? Oh yes, one last thing. I noticed that some people also wanted to talk about the contemporary applications of salt and iron, and actually related it to some other courses they're taking, and pointed out that some of these issues bear on Chinese situation today as well, don't they? With all the big state-owned industries, and really it sounds a lot like the Lord Grand Secretary is in charge again. This week, what do we have coming up?
This week we have self-realization coming up.
Self-realization. So, if you wonder what self-realization is, I can tell you that involves drugs,
Yes.
philosophy,
Yes.
literature,
Yes.
alchemy.
Yes.
Weird. But look at it and tell us what you think, okay? Thanks a lot and goodbye.
Thank you.